Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast. I'm Will.
And I'm James, and welcome to the Tasmanian edition of our Year in Beer 2024 series of podcasts.
Yes, so first up, you're going to hear us chat with Matt Fielding, who runs Science Made Beerable with Kelsey Picard. It's an awesome not-for-profit that's been running in Tassie for a couple of years, or quite a few years actually. That they're dedicated to educating people about beer and science, and with Matt, we really dive into Hobart and Southern Tassie and what's been going on down there, as well as what's been going on with Science Made Beerable.
And then we switch to the north of the state, where we catch up with Scott Seymour, who's been around the beer and I guess hospo industry in Australia for a while. Originally in Bendigo, then moved down to Tassie a few years ago, having loved it on holiday. He's running a number of breweries and venues in the north of the state now, so gives a brewer's perspective, but also a bit of an eye over what's happening in his part of the world in Tasmania. I guess without further ado, we'll jump into the first chat with Matt. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review, all that usual stuff. And we'll see you on the other side.
Cheers.
Cheers. The Crafty Pints Year in Beer recap is presented by Mogwai Labs. They've just expanded from their University of Wollongong lab to a new custom-built yeast production facility in Port Kembla to keep up with growing demand for their liquid yeasts.
Check them out today at mogwailabs.com.au. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Before we get into a bit of a look back at Tassie and look ahead, do you want to let us know about Science Made Beerable for those who wouldn't be familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. So Science Made Beerable is a little not-for-profit that operates to, advance public awareness and appreciation of brewing science. But also we've got a passion for promoting diversity within the industry too, given that STEM science shares a lot of similarities in terms of being a little bit undiverse in some ways. So it was set up in 2020 during the peak of COVID. Kelsey Picard, a colleague of mine, and myself set it up basically off the back of creating an event for National Science Week that had to be online because everything was online. And so we set this event up that people could sit at home and drink beer while we talked about the science of beer with the brewers, and live streamed it out across Australia. So since then, we've done the event every year, except for this year just gone. And it's just kind of grown.
We picked a great year to talk to you then. What's your highlight of the year, not doing an event?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, there have been highlights as well. We did become a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
We became, we formed a committee and, we can receive grants and stuff. So if anyone wants to join our not-for-profit, hit me up. And we also did a scholarship from last year's event. So we got the brewers together to brew a scholarship beer, and then the profits from that funded a scholarship called the Pills of Wisdom Scholarship. And the recipient of that actually completed the IBD and General Certificate in Brewing just gone. So yeah, there has been some highlights, I guess.
I was just joking. I mean, and it's a temporary hiatus. That's the idea for the event.
Yeah, so it's just 2024. We've got everything kind of the cogs started moving for 2025. It was just a number of reasons. The year in beer has been weird, so brewers haven't been able to be in the right place, I guess, to take part in an event that does require a fair bit of input in terms of brewing a beer specifically for it. We didn't get the funding we wanted in previous years, and also Kelsey and myself each introduced our own second children a week apart in February. So personal reasons impacted that as well. So yeah, looking forward to 2025 though.
And Kelsey's a bit of an apology. She's back home in New Zealand. Otherwise, she'll be here with us. But in terms of what's excited you or what stood out in 2024, particularly you're based in Hobart, around the southern part of Tassie.
Yeah, so I'm based down here in Hobart now. Big moments. I mean, we've been lucky down in Tassie that, we've seen lots of breweries shut down or merge or do kinds of things. That hasn't happened in Tassie, so we've been quite lucky. In fact, we've seen a couple more breweries opening. So we've got Hopfields down in Margate, which opened a couple of weeks ago, situated on old hop growing regions. So that's really cool. And then Bicheno Brewing, the second brewery for tiny little Bicheno, which is phenomenal. But they've really hit the ground running, attending lots of events, releasing some really great beer. So that's really exciting. And there's also been a merger of not a merger, but I guess a merger of venues, much like Wildflower and Mountain Culture with Village, with T-Bone and Last Rites, which are quite well established breweries, uh, joining forces at the Huntingfield Brewery down there. So from a punter's point of view, it's great because you can have both beers. And they've also got a children's playground, so it ticks all the boxes for me.
And what about
Um,
in terms of so any sort of trends within style? Are you seeing across a number of breweries, or any sort of emerging styles coming through? You know, whether it's celebrating local ingredients or what have you.
Yeah, so I mean, well, not unlike, just like the rest of the country, there has been this trend with lagers popping up. So, for example, a lot of breweries, Hobart Brewing Company, Shambles, they released, I guess, seasonal lagers, just a one-off, and then got great response. So they rebrewed it.
Mhm.
Now they're on their core range. So it's a natural progression, I guess. But we're also Tassie's got great lagers. We've got the Albert, Spotty Dog have been producing some really good lagers lately as well. In terms of they, I guess the funny thing about Spotty Dog is they were well known for producing big IPAs. And then they went and hired the head brewer Riley, who was trained in Germany, and of course he's had his way and brought all these lagers with decoction brewing into it. And I think back in January they released Big Gartenwetter, which is a hell style from Munich, which was really good. In the middle of the year they released Kragbach, which I've definitely slaughtered, which is a Marzen. And then at the same time, they also released Hellgoat, which was a Hellerbock, which is an 8% light lager, which is just absolutely delicious, dangerously drinkable. And it's really good to highlight a style that many people have probably never heard of before either.
Mhm. Well, so maybe the Albert's going, "Hey everyone, this was our territory. Just hold off."
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's lagers are really taking. It's funny for such an old style of beer to really start taking off again, and I'm welcoming it because I'm loving lagers at the moment.
And what about anything you're looking forward to in the year ahead?
Sure. So I guess a big thing, especially being in Tasmania, we've got so many great products down here. Like we've got Hop Products Australia, who produce hops. Like the hop fields out at the Derwent Valley are incredible. And I'd like to see a real push for sustainability within the industry a lot more. You've got breweries like Wildflower and Rocky Ridge, who aren't in Tassie, but they're really like leading that charge of sustainable brewing, local produce, etc. So I'd really like to see breweries pushing for that more in the future, especially next year, and hoping that Science Made Beerable might be able to kind of help push that by highlighting some of those, I guess, successes in adopting sustainable practices.
Just our
Um,
teaser for next year's event is going to be the sustainability special.
yeah, well, I mean, maybe watch this space. Maybe it's a good idea. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll be looking forward to the event as well.
Yeah.
Really excited to see that come to fruition. So yeah, that's probably my highlight, and that will be what all my time will be pushed towards as well.
What about, anyone coming to Tassie over summer, like whether it's a newer brewery or venue that's been around forever? Like, are there things that you still think people shouldn't really miss if they're looking for a beer experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great breweries in in the city, but also out in the outskirts too. So, um, 2 Meter Tall, I think, is always worth a visit. And I should mention actually that's something that's really important. They celebrated 20 years
Mm.
this year, which is phenomenal for a
Yeah.
brewery to be around that long, and especially a brewery that produces such unique um, beers as they do. Ashley's just like such a legend. He's just got stories forever, and Jane's the most lovely person in the world.
And a
So
brewery with only two staff, really, the two
yeah,
of them as well for 20
exactly.
years. It's incredible.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's just yeah, and I would recommend if they're doing the cellar tours, anyone go do one of those because he'll talk to you for 4 hours and it will be the most fun you've had for 4 hours, and you'll try the most unique beers you've ever tried.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely hit that up.
Well, and I know he
Um,
was in Brisbane recently because one of our other contributors, Judd Owen, went to an event and he sent me an email afterwards. You could sense the excitement he'd had from being at the event, from just,
yeah,
I guess he's almost like he's a very smart guy. And I don't know if it's about Ashley, but more than anything, he's a great entertainer when he has a room of people to entertain. Like when the
Yeah.
wingspan unfurls and the face lights up, and you don't know what's coming next.
Yeah, exactly. He's got so many stories. He's a winemaker originally in France. So, to come from that world into the brewing world, and how he's learnt to brew, I guess, by scratch, using what he knows from winemaking it's the reason he has such unique beers, and can do the things that he can do.
And any other sort of hot tips for people who've maybe not been to Tassie and explored the beer scene if they are heading down?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great breweries in the city. I always think Spotty Dog's worth a visit. Their new venue out in kind of on the outskirts, really. But it has this beautiful view that you don't think it should have, over the water, looking up at Kunani the mountain. Great beers, great venue. Um, the Hobart Brewing Company Red Sheds, always worthwhile, and that's just in the city, so you can just walk down there. Great space, really open, lots of gigs, great music. So yeah, um, I think they're kind of the key ones. And if you want to go down towards the valley, Hopfields in Margate is the new one that I think is worth a visit. A lot of outdoor area, great food. They've got the old Albert Brewery head brewer, so JJ King's down there. So it's good beer, so you don't have to worry about that. And yeah, well worth a visit.
Right. We should book a flight.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize. I feel like I keep a close eye on the Tassie scene, so to see new breweries popping up still, it's really great.
Yeah, it's surprising. I think we have the highest number of breweries per capita or something like that, and we're still getting more and more breweries, but I don't think the number of people is increasing at such the same rate. So
Just the
yeah,
first.
yeah, I'm not complaining though. That's for sure.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
It is.
Cheers.
Thank you, mate.
Mogwai Labs is Australia's leading provider of liquid yeast cultures for craft brewers. And the good news is that they've recently expanded capacity to meet demand. Josh and the team have built an incredible library of yeasts, including classic styles from across the world, mixed fermentation wild yeasts, and even Australian cultures foraged from native plants, flowers, and fruits. If you're looking for something special to make your beer unique, look no further than Mogwai Labs, who can work with you to create custom yeast strains for your brewery. And once that yeast is perfected, Mogwai will keep it bio-banked and ready to use whenever you need. If you're looking for the perfect pitch every time, hit up Mogwai Labs. That's mogwailabs.com.au today.
Scott, welcome to the podcast. How you going?
G'day, guys. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Now, I first met you back in your Bendigo days in around about 2500 BC, I think it was, in a basement.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your sort of early days in beer and live music?
Yeah, well, I guess it kind of got started when I moved to Bendigo and we opened a tiny little bar we had down there, the basement bar, and I think it was licensed for about 45 people and we used to get about 95 into it. Yeah, we had a great time down there and we kind of started off linking in with Trevor and Justin, and we started the Bendigo Beer movement down there, and that's just gone gangbusters.
And so I guess you were fully involved in the early days of Bendigo Beer. Like the basement bar was one of the original venues. You were involved in the homebrew competition, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, Trevor, and myself were kind of the three first members of that, and the Bendigo Home Brew Comp we first had in the basement bar down there, and that's gone on to do great things. And of course, the champions of Bendigo Beer have now just opened their own brewery.
Yes. And what sparked? How'd you end up running Penguin and Island State in Tassie?
Well, we first came here on holidays, my wife Tara and I, and we hadn't never been to Tassie before, and just absolutely fell in love with it. Went home, packed our bags, and literally came back straight away. We both had jobs to go to, but COVID put a stop to those. And when we were driving around with nothing to do, we found this empty old building on the beach. And Tara thought that'd be a great little place for a bar, and we got busy.
Wow. Okay. It was that thoroughly planned.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Look, and then because we had all that time off with COVID, I bought myself a little brewmeister kit and started working downstairs on some recipes. The those recipes we took to Morrison's in Launceston, and they became the first Penguin beers. And then quite a few locals got interested in what we were doing and threw a bit of money our way, and we're able to build our own brewery in Devonport, which became Island State Brewing.
Yeah. So you started in Penguin, then did Island State in Devonport, and then the third
Yeah,
venue.
expanded to Devonport a year later, and then a bit less than 12 months after that, the lease came up on Buttons moved out of their facility there, so we moved in there at Ulverston, and that's now called the Pier.
And what's next, or is 3 enough for an extended holiday?
Oh, well, no, we've had a look around now, but that'll do for now, I think.
Well, what's the space?
Never say never. Never say never.
And in terms of the year 2024, obviously it's been a pretty tough one for a lot of people. How's it sort of felt on the ground in Tassie and Northern Tassie?
Oh, look, I think up this way it's been a lot better than most of the rest of the country, for us anyway. I mean, we had a very tough 2023, but we grew. I mean, we knew we were going to. We grew ridiculously too fast, but we knew we have to cop that for a year or so. But we learned a lot of lessons, and we applied them, and it made 24 a lot easier for us. We still had a pretty good steady stream of tourists here at Penguin through the winter, and that really helped things here.
Yeah. And what about the wider scene? There's obviously been a lot of growth in terms of the number of breweries in the north of the state. I guess there only been a handful when I first came, maybe 10 years ago, but it seems to be growing. Most towns or most regions seem to have 1 or 2 now.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, here in Tassie, you can't drive half an hour without tripping over a brewery. It's fantastic. It's just awesome. We love it. It's a really good community. We'll always drop into all the other venues and check them out.
Yeah. And who's been sort of impressing over the last 12 months anywhere in the state, whether that's beers, breweries, standout events, venues, whatever?
Well, for me, I guess look, Spotty Dog's opening, which has been a little while now, but I love going down there. I think they're the only place in Tassie that has a better view than we do. Their kitchen opening was just fantastic. I love getting down there for some of their fried chicken. It's awesome.
Yeah.
The other one is Manky Sally's Moo Brews opening the venue in Salamanca, and we never go to Hobart without dropping in there. It's just incredible.
Yeah, no, I've not been in, but I've seen the photos. It seems like I guess what you'd expect from Moo/Mona, just in terms of the attention to detail and the sort of off the wall or carpet on the wall details, I suppose.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and their forage menu is just mind blowing. So good.
Yeah. And how's the event scene been around Tassie? You still had many sort of beer events taking place, whether of a sort of small or large scale.
Yeah, it looked probably a bit tougher. Anything to do with like festivals, events, ticket sales, all that kind of stuff is pretty tough at the moment.
Yeah. And what about any sort of trends? Are there sort of styles that are proving popular? I mean, Tassie, from my impression, has always sort of marched to the beat of its own drum to an extent. Back in the day when you wouldn't find any sort of traditional ales around the country, you'd find several breweries making Irish Reds or English bitters or whatever. Then obviously you've had that sort of expanding. Spotty Dog, who you mentioned before, very well known for their IPAs. Has there been anything you've noticed this year in terms of trends?
Well, for us, when you mentioned the Irish Red, and we made that Irish Red of ours, which is called the Ranger, and it won gold in 23. And it has just gone from strength to strength. Like, I can't believe how much that beer sells. Like, it's just a real bog-stand traditional style of beer, and people just love it.
Yeah.
The other standout we've had this year, I guess, brewed it as a one-off, was just a little single hop Nectaron hazy pale ale, coming in at 4%, and that has just really hit a nerve down here, and people absolutely love it. I think it's that 4%, that great fruity nectarine taste. And everyone's going nuts for that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. We've sort of seen a lot of buzz around Kiwi hops, like some of the newer varieties, but also that a number of our chats already for this sort of end of year series have been highlighting that sort of move to more moderate styles, sort of lower ABV. So whether it's just that your average craft beer drink is getting a bit older, or whether it's just that people like to have a bit more to drink and still be able to function, but it's certainly a common theme we're hearing.
I mean, I'll stick to my old school West Coast IPAs, but I'll make whatever they want me to.
And just so are you still handling all the brewing for Penguin and Island State?
Oh,
or
God, no way. We've got an incredible brewing team of Michael and Bjorn who just do an amazing job down there. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of looking ahead, so what are the plans for your 3 venues if it stays at 3 for 2025?
Oh, look, our biggest thing is building the wholesale at the moment. So we're just about to purchase our first canning machine, and that's going to really allow us to fulfill. We just can't keep up with beer orders at the moment using mobile canning. So we're looking forward to that, and that's going to allow us to do a few more experimental styles, a few more one-off beers, and that's got me really excited for 25.
Yeah. And when you say wholesale, are you just servicing Tassie, or are you looking to get some beer onto the mainland at some point as well?
Well, just servicing Tassie at this stage. I'd love to get to Melbourne and Geelong. We've got a huge demand for it. The Victorian recycling people keep ringing me up, asking me to register for them because people are taking our cans home to Victoria. And I'm like, we don't sell in Victoria, guys. I can't help you. There's nothing we can do about that.
Maybe that's the story to stick to, even if you do start selling it here as well.
Yeah, I think we will. Yeah.
No,
But then we've
close to
got
the spirit.
we've got the container scheme coming in this year in 25, so we'll see how that goes too.
Yeah. No, well, you're more than welcome over to Melbourne in May when Pint of Origin's on. I'm sure your beers will be on at the Lincoln, but if you
I'd love to do that
over
this year.
there
We haven't done that yet, but when we're looking at that market for next year. Yeah, certainly love to get into that.
Yeah, great. And in terms of the wider beer scene, either in Tasmania or just for sort of, I guess, Australian craft beer in general, because, as a whole, it's been going through a pretty rough few years. Any sort of, hopes, dreams, or just, what you'd like to see happen in the next year?
Yeah, I guess for me, I'd just like to see a lot more people supporting local and even that really uber local focus that, people are starting to get behind now. I'm loving the education that the OIBA is doing around, where your beer comes from and knowing where your beer comes from, that kind of thing. Because people here, and especially in Tassie, it's all, Bogues and Cascade, and none of them got any idea who really owns it or where their money's really going. So that's something that, I'm always sprouting.
Yeah. And what have you been doing to sort of bring people into your venues in terms of sort of drumming up support from the local community? Do you have sort of a number of sort of, I guess, Bogues or, Cascade style beers to bring them in? Or is it more about just word of mouth and making welcoming venues, putting on events they'll like or what have you?
Well, we've got our Island State lager, which is really popular. If someone comes in and they say, "Oh, no, I only drink Bogues," I'll give them one of our lagers, and they never knock it back. Lager drink's a lager drinker, and we've made a pretty generic but very enjoyable lager that everyone can enjoy. That's really the focus with the Island State beers. Is we call it beer for the people. We just want to make things that are really approachable. And once we get them on the lager and we start that conversation, well, if you like that, we can try this and try and move them around. We've got so many people here who, I guess, hadn't experienced independent beers before we arrived, and now they're completely converted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's going to be potentially a slower way to sort of rebuild or build the craft beer audience again in the future, but I think it's going to be a much more sustainable way if each brewery and each good beer bar takes it upon themselves to just win over their postcode, win over their locals, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Well, fantastic, Scott. Thanks so much for the chat, and we'll see you soon, hopefully down in Tassie.
I hope so, guys. Great to talk to you again.
And I don't think we had a single train rumble by either, so we did well.
No, give it time.
Cheers, mate.
All right, thanks a lot. Cheers.
The Crafty Pints Year in Beer series is proudly presented by Mogwai Labs, leaders in liquid yeast solutions. For the perfect pitch every time, visit mogwailabs.com.au. That's mogwailabs.com.au.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftycabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.